Hello again, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Reiner, and thank you for listening in to a brand new episode of Deeply Rooted.
Deeply rooted in God's word. Deeply rooted in God's word.
All right, hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Deeply Rooted. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you're at and however you may be listening. We understand this is some unique circumstances, so we're trying to get some content out to you as best we can. As always, before we dive into today's episode, we want to remind you to check out our Facebook page. Make sure you like that and follow us there. Share that with other people. And don't forget to go on over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button there as well. You can find all of our archived episodes on there and anyone you'd like to share with anybody else. And if you haven't done so already, this past year we've been really fortunate to be able to start our own website. That's jeremiahreiner.com. We've got a lot of blog posts on there you can read for yourself as well as for other people. And we've also got all the archived episodes of Deeply Rooted on there. So lots of ways to find it. And if you're into the Apple podcast scene, you can find us on there as well. So we want to say a big thank you to all of our friends at Podpoint Ministries. For all churches out there that are looking for some ministerial support, we highly encourage you to get in touch with those guys. They do a tremendous work. We're really proud to be able to work with them, and can't say enough about their product and their expertise in what they do. So if you're looking to get yourself out there on the World Wide Web, that'd be a great opportunity to do that with Podpoint Ministries. So that being said, let's go and dive into the episode today. We have actually put this off on hold probably what feels like 100 times now. I actually ran a poll back last year, and this won out, and we're going to be talking about local missions today. And different scenarios have played out, but things haven't worked out, timing, whatnot, some on my end, some various other reasons. But here we are today, so we're super excited to have Jordan and Cass Hughes with us. So, guys, thank you all for joining.
We're glad to be here. You know, it's funny that it's taken us 6 months to make this happen, it seems like, when we see each other on a weekly basis and talk every day.
Yeah, that is sad. Jordan and I play way too much golf and not enough podcasting, so that's a big problem on my end. Now, I want to introduce these guys really quick. They're great friends of mine, but for those of you that don't know them, Jordan is a teacher at Union High School. He's also the new youth director for Wise Baptist Church, so we're really excited about that. Congrats to him. And he also does something I'm very passionate about as well, and we both do local pulpit supplies. So really excited to have him on as well as his wife. Cass is the clinical educator for Wise and Dickinson County, Virginia. They have a daughter named Molly. She's cute as a button, by the way. And they got another one on the way this summer, so big congrats to you guys.
Thank you.
Now, we're doing this over Zoom, so this is the first time for us on that, so bear with us. We have them on the line right now, and hopefully everything goes according to plan. As of right now, everything's good to go, so hang tight with us, and hopefully everything functions well. But let's go ahead and get into the topic. We could talk about a whole lot of things today, and I know that because we've done that a bazillion times over, but we want to try to keep it to local missions, and here's two people that have had quite a bit of contact in that field. So just throwing it out there to both of you, when did local missions, or missions in general, I guess, become something you were really serious about and wanted to get involved in?
Yeah, for me, I actually went on a mission trip when I was in youth group at Wise Baptist Church. So this is kind of came full circle for me, and missions is kind of where I guess my relationship with Christ really began to develop. We went on a mission trip to Charleston, South Carolina, in the summer of 2012, and that's when I, began to commit my life to Christ on a regular basis. I gave a profession of faith when I was young, but that was a life-changing moment for me where God really flipped my world upside down. And that mission trip we worked on a farm for special needs kids. They worked with special needs kids there. It's like a horse farm, and the kids they gave them a job, and it gave the parents a place to take their kids so their parents could work. And it was just a really, really awesome experience. And I was on the trip with a bunch of people that I barely knew, but by the time we left, I felt like that we were all family.
Cass, what about you?
I think for me, I had been in church my whole life, but I had never really been involved in a ton of local missions, I guess. And we went to a Passion conference in 2015, maybe. And I remember there was a speaker there, and she was talking about Elisha working in the fields while he was waiting on God. And kind of her whole point was that even while he was waiting, he was still working and doing what he could. And I guess that just really spoke to me in the form of, I guess that was a time in my life that I felt like I wasn't doing a lot. And so the more I prayed about it, it kind of, God kept laying it on my heart to start some local missions within our church and within our community, just to kind of start showing love to others and just doing some type of work for God.
Now, we've been fortunate, I know Jordan and I have, to be able to experience foreign missions as well. We've been on some overseas trips to Nicaragua. I've had a chance to go to Puerto Rico myself. And certainly in a church, you've got to balance both. We're not saying either or here or one over the other. I think it's more of a both and type approach. And I think you guys would agree with that. But for the sake of what we're talking about today, kind of explain to people why local is so important, or at least keeping it within community or within your community's reach.
Yeah, I think it's simply community itself. I mean, as the church, I think we have an extremely important responsibility of developing a relationship with our community, and you have to nurture that relationship by being involved in it. It's one thing to have a sign outside your church doors that says, "Hey, you're welcome here," but to actually get an opportunity to go and show people that you're welcome here, I think really is what makes people want to come and be a part of the Church of Jesus Christ.
I think I would kind of agree with that. I think a lot of times with foreign missions, the great thing about that is sometimes you're going to places where they've never heard of God before. And I think kind of the mindset around here is most people already know him. But I think it's a lot of times we forget that a lot of people know of him, but they might not really know him. And that there's sometimes, just as much work that we can get done here with just showing them what it really means to be a Christian, because I think sometimes people have kind of a skewed view on that maybe. So just really showing them what it is to show love to others and show what a real relationship with God looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've had to learn over the last couple of years specifically, and I've really gathered this from guys that have been on the field there and their families, it's super important to know your community when it comes to reaching out to them. Like you and I could sit here and say, well, we really need to start a brand new inner city mission. Well, when you don't have inner city, that's kind of difficult to do, and it's great to talk about that. But if you don't have that need, you're kind of missing the mark. So explain to everybody just really quickly why it's important to actually know your community and maybe some ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I think it's really important just to take a step back and realize that, when you're wanting to impact people in your community, they're going to be more impacted when you actually influence them in something that, they need influence by, or, that you're doing a work that they actually need. And I think people notice that is the big thing. People notice that you took the time to realize that they had a need and that you're doing whatever you can to fulfill that need. And if we're just going out and just doing random things that may or may not help people, it's not going to be as efficient as actually taking the time to get to know what people need and how they need it and how we can be of help to make sure that we fulfill that need.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer. I think the community ought to dictate the mission, and I don't mean supersede Scripture, obviously, but I do think we need to take a step back, like you said, and realize, here's an area that people need help. Here's a burden that we have for this community, and it's a clear, obvious thing we could do to interject some help there. So definitely on the same page there. Cass, I'll throw this one at you and get us started here. Give a few examples to us here in the audience listening as well that some different local missions you've been able to be a part of and help organize as well.
So I wrote down some of the biggest ones I could think of, and we've kind of done a whole lot of different times. So we've done like some community Thanksgiving dinners and community Christmas parties, just kind of like inviting all the local kids to come and just give them a place to go. Mm-hmm. Some home improvement projects for like some elderly or disabled in the area. We've done some coat drives before. Even things as little, I'm always a fan of, like we went to Food City before and just gave out like free snow cones and helped load groceries. Just little things like that you can show love to people are kind of some of the stuff that I'm a big fan of. And then, of course, like Samaritan's Purse, doing some local U.S. stuff as well in disaster relief.
Right. Yeah, Jordan, do you have any other ones to add on to that one?
Yeah, the only other one that she didn't mention is the one that kind of started it off for us doing stuff together is, we when Cass and I first started going to church together and we had started dating, the first thing that we both got involved in was doing like food boxes for some people who may need some extra food every month. And,
right.
That was just a really cool opportunity for us to get to do ministry together for the very first time. And I think that kind of springboarded everything that we've done since then.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity myself do some of the similar things you guys talked about. Definitely the blanket distribution, Bible distribution, book bags, things like that. Clothing distribution is a big help, particularly in the Appalachian communities and stuff like that. You see a lot of those needs, some basic things like food boxes and stuff, blankets, and we've been able to partner with some really interesting mission opportunities. I know Blanket Appalachia is one that we had a chance to branch out with a time or two in the past, and Southwest Virginia and parts of West Virginia and Kentucky. So those are huge helps, and certainly the ones that you guys named off are tremendous as well. And I like how you guys incorporated a lot of the youth groups with those as well. So no age limit on this stuff. I hope people understand that. Like when we talk missions, this is not like an adult approach, but you can really incorporate quite a few people. So
yeah, and it can also be a great family togetherness event.
Absolutely.
You don't have to. When you go on a foreign mission trip, you may have to find somebody to keep your kids or something for the week. But, for a local daily or just a Saturday out, that can be a family gathering where you spend some time together and teach your kids some great principles along the same time.
Right. Now, let's hit the highlight reel here for just a second. Let's hear, maybe best local mission story you got, like something that really stood out to you, whether it's one of the tear jerkers or just a really good moment you all had.
Yeah, I remember we did spent a Saturday helping a lady who didn't have any family close by, and she didn't really have the money to pay someone to come do some spring cleaning at her house, and that included like cleaning out her gutters and I think pressure washing her deck and a couple of minor repairs. And just a lady in our church had referred her to us, and so we go out and spend half maybe a Saturday morning out there. And we just kind of thought we're just going out there to to help this lady who's in need and doesn't really have anyone. And then as we finish up, the lady just kind of breaks down and starts talking to us about some spiritual needs that she had. And we were able to, pray with her and, love on her and, tell her about Jesus and, how he does, provide a way and can do so much more than just showing up on a Saturday morning and doing a little bit of yard work. And I think that to me, that is my heart for missions, is the opportunity that it presents. I think it's great to do good things. We saw Jesus do amazing things.
Right.
In the New Testament with, miracles, and he was kind of a local missionary himself at times. But the opportunity that it gives to, point people to him is what drives me to keep doing it.
Yeah, Cass, what about you?
I think for me, when I went with Samaritan's Purse to Texas to do disaster relief, they kind of select people. I'm not sure how their process is, but they select certain ones that qualify for Samaritan's Purse to come in and help them. And there was one morning down there that our guide took us to the wrong house. And we had been there working almost all day before they realized that we weren't even supposed to be with this lady. She had never said anything about it because we were there helping her, and that was great. But it was just really such a God thing that he sent us to that wrong house that day, because she was so intrigued to listen to why we were there, like why we would have left our families and why we would have went down there to do really hard labor like that. And, she was so interested in wanting us to pray with her and, wanting to learn more about what we were doing and who God was. And it was just a really, really awesome moment.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot of, we've talked about this before, and the God moments that usually come about, when you do a lot of missions, whether it be foreign or local, and they're the ones that you don't catch. You hear all these people talking about where you're going to expect this and that and the other, and that's great, and they're usually right, but it's the things that you don't expect that usually end up being probably the best thing that happened. I've had a few of those myself. What about on the flip side of that, maybe worst or funniest moments you've ever had, like as far as local missions go?
Okay, well, Cass is going to throw me under the bus too, so I'm going to throw myself under the bus for the first one. But I think the worst moment I've had in missions is we did disaster flood relief in North Carolina one late fall. And for those of you that don't know, like what it means to do a flood relief is, these houses, they get up to 3 or 4 feet of water in them during these massive floods, and so they get ruined, and then electricity gets turned off, and the people have to, immediately leave their house. They don't get to gather any belongings. So you've got, refrigerators that had groceries in them that have been with no electricity, no refrigeration for up to 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So you can imagine how that smells. And then you've got mildew and mold that's already started to develop, and all of the water damage. So it leaves a really smelly atmosphere. And one thing I do not do well is smells. So, we go to North Carolina, really excited about it. And I'll be honest with you, Jeremiah, I could not even go in the house to handle the smell that day. Everybody else is being troopers, and I'm outside like almost gagging because of how bad it smells. So they decided to give me the grunt work of the day. So I had to load and unload about 1,000 loads of a wheelbarrow that day, back and forth. So the next day, I don't think I could hardly get out of bed. So that's definitely my worst mission trip moment.
Yeah, no doubt.
So my worst one is actually the same trip. Jordan had a lot of problems on this trip, it seems like. But this was actually the first Samaritan's Purse trip that I had planned all by myself. So I had worked super hard making sure that we had, the transportation, that everybody's spot was booked, that everything was all lined out. And I put Jordan in charge of one job, was to book our hotel for the night that we were going down there. And I remember it was the day before that we were supposed to leave, I think, that he called me and said, "I've really messed up. I booked our hotel for the wrong weekend."
Oh.
So he starts looking, and there was something else going on that week down there. And the only hotel he could find is probably the nastiest hotel that you've ever seen in your life. It was one of those where you sleep with your shoes and your clothes on, and you don't even get under the covers because there's probably rats and roaches and everything else under there. I think a lot of people ended up sleeping in the van because it was so bad.
Listen, it was only like $25 for the night per room, so at least I saved us some money.
Now, for those of you who don't know, that's one of the most Jordan Hughes things I know. He's probably one of the most economically sound people, so that makes perfect sense to hear that he went low route.
He doesn't tell the other part that there was another hotel available, and it was like a 5-star hotel. It's $400 a night. And everybody, it was like right across the street, and everybody's like, "Why didn't we stay at the Hilton?" And I was like, well, I tried to save us a little bit of money thinking this place would be okay. Sure enough, it was not.
You didn't want to be known as the Prosperity Gospel Ministry.
That's right.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit, and let's talk about, we're realists here. We understand that, things happen, and sometimes there's setback and negativity when you're organizing any type of ministry. I don't care what level it is, but explain to us a little bit about some of the setbacks, so to speak, that you've had as far as like projects that you would go about organizing.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest setbacks in local missions is just the initial hesitation. The negative thoughts that go through your mind of, are we really prepared to do this? Is God really going to move when we do this? Is this something he really wants us to be involved in? And then also, on the flip side of the things, the thought process seems to go through a lot of people's minds of, well, we're already involved in so many other things with our church. Do we really have time and resources to make something like this happen? And I think that we find out later, that once you dive in, it probably goes to the top of the priority list of things that your church should be doing.
Right. What about advice would you guys give to members and congregations about setting up, ministry as far as local missions go?
I think for me, one big thing is just making sure that you're remembering the true reason for why you're doing it the whole time that you're preparing and setting up and actually doing it. And kind of not to let your head get caught up in just planning a good event or, with bigger things like the community Thanksgiving dinner or something, trying to not get caught up in just pulling off a good event or the church looking good because you did something really good, but making sure that you're truly remembering the whole time that it's just to show love to others and to show God's love, and just not let yourself get caught up in it having to be perfect.
Yeah, what about...
I would also just add, that to keep in perspective that the trip is also for you and the rest of your church body.
Right.
Because you have a really good opportunity to be impacted spiritually by growing closer to the people that you spend every Sunday with.
Yeah, absolutely. On the flip side of that, as members of congregations in churches, not necessarily like trying to tell them what to do, but like what good advice would you give to leaders and pastors when it comes to setting these up?
Yeah, I think my encouragement to leaders, pastors of churches who want to make this happen is to let others lead. I think there are a lot of other people in your congregations that have a heart for missions, and they probably don't even know it. And I think as a pastor or a leader in the church, it's your job to enable them and empower them and empower those people to do what God is already leading them to do. And I think, as church leaders, sometimes we kind of get in our own way sometimes by wanting to have our hands on everything. And, that can kind of slow the process and maybe not allow you to do as much as you could do if you just took your hands off a few things and let, the people in your congregation who are capable and willing and God is leading them to do it, to just go and do it.
Absolutely. Looking ahead a little bit, and I know you've kind of touched on this for just a second, but what do you think the biggest gain, I guess, coming out of churches getting involved in local mission projects would be? Obviously, the gospel being presented would definitely be at the priority list there, but is there anything else that stands out like, hey, this is a huge pro for us when looking back on it?
Yeah, I think a couple for me. One is I think it removes the stigma from churches. Churches seem to just have a stigma in some communities that they're only there for themselves. And I think that once you can get out there in the community and show that you have a heart for the people around you, that your church is only going to benefit from that, because people are going to look and say, you know what, those people actually do care about us.
Right.
And, and not to say that, it takes missions to actually care about the community, because I know all of our local churches care about their community. But I think that the missions is kind of the avenue that allows the community to see that they care about you, instead of just, us just saying it. Because we can sit here and say we love our community all day long, but when people see it and see us in action outside of the church walls, I think it really has a big impact. And the only other one that I had was it teaches your congregation to share the gospel. When you go on a mission trip, you're surrounded by some people who may not know Jesus, compared to when you go to church on Sunday mornings, you're around, a lot of people who do know Jesus, and you're not really motivated to have to share the gospel with people. So I think it kind of puts you a little bit out of your comfort zone and helps you grow as a follower and as a sharer of the gospel. Yeah,
that's a good point. There's a lot of people probably listening right now, or eventually will listen to this, that are going to think, hey, we've got a burden for local missions. I'd love for our church to be involved in that. I'd love for us to get that going. Cass, you can hit on this for us to start with if you like, but what would you tell them as far as just getting started, like, from ground one here?
I think the biggest thing for me, I guess, is just remembering that it doesn't have to be anything big. It's not like you have to go and plan a trip across, the U.S. or something, or do this big community event. It can be something as simple as just starting to serve the elderly in your community, or doing, little things for the kids, or, just start small until you build up to it. It doesn't have to be a big production event or
Right.
anything. Just the littlest thing is going to impact the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good, and I think that for me, my encouragement to those people who are kind of on the fence would be, it's not if, it's when you're going to do it.
Right.
We're not necessarily, we shouldn't have to wait for God to tell us to do missions. He's telling us to do missions. I mean, that's part of our calling as Christians to get involved every single day, and working with our community. And then the other piece of advice that, people who are, maybe looking to get involved and feel like they have a burden, reach out to other churches who are involved, because I think that we could do a lot more of that as local churches, is, reaching out to people who have experience and know what they're doing and would be willing to help you along the way, kind of get out there, because the more Christians we have out doing things in our community, the more results we're going to see as far as bringing more people into the family of Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. And totally agree with those. And I would even add to that, probably some of the better local mission opportunities I've had were with multiple churches getting involved in the same endeavor. I thought there was more fruit out of that than there was just one church trying to do everything on their own. But kind of closing up here and just looking at the times, things are going to be a lot different once, good Lord willing, we come out of this situation we're in right now. And there's even some things that we can do currently. But do you guys have anything that you'd want to share or add, or maybe some ideas you had about how to help out, in times like now or even ahead?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is just to realize that, with everything that's going on, everyone's situation is very different right now.
Right.
Some people aren't working, but they're getting paid. Some people are still having to go to work and work in dangerous environments. Some people are out of work. They don't have a job for the future. They've been laid off, and they have no idea what's going to happen. And then on the flip side of that, you've got businesses who have no idea what their future holds. So I think there is a huge need for the church to step up and figure out how we can support these people, whether that just be through communication or prayer, and even more so if the church has the ability through financial giving.
Yeah.
Whether that means like a small, we talked about this earlier. I think it would be really neat to see churches step up and buy some gift cards to local restaurants and give those to people who may be out of work and not getting paid right now. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone,
Sure.
as the saying goes. You're helping a restaurant in need, but you're also helping a family who doesn't know where the next meal is going to come from.
Yeah, and that's totally local at the same time. This is not something we've got to look halfway across the country to find. We're facing it like anybody else here in our area. So, yeah, I really appreciate that answer. Anything else before we guys get out of here?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day. Thank you all so much. Times are what they are. It's crazy as it is, but this actually worked out pretty good for us to be able to kind of record this, and hopefully this will be a blessing to a lot of people. If you'd like to reach out to us and get in touch, maybe some more opportunities with local missions, we can help you out with that. You can email us here at drigw18@gmail.com. Again, that's drigw18@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on our Facebook page as well. We can get you in contact with some of the people we know, or maybe we can get you in contact with Jordan and Cass as well, so you can hook up with them and maybe pick their brain about some things and then get some ideas rolling for yourself. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be right back with some closing announcements, so hang tight. Hey everybody, Jeremiah back with some closing announcements. We can't say enough about Jordan and Cass Hughes. We appreciate them being on our episode today and talking about local missions. And again, if you want to get in touch with them, just reach out to us through our email. That's drigw18@gmail.com, or you can also reach out to us through message there on our Facebook page. If you haven't done so already, make sure you follow us on there for anything that we do daily, all the updates that we give you, as well as some of the inspirational Bible passages that we share. And you can also find all the links to our previous episodes as well. Make sure you go on over to YouTube, find our channel there at Deeply Rooted. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We'd love to hear from you on that. Send us a a rating and a review. We'd love to hear from you. And any comment you could make there would be much appreciated. And share that with some other people. If you like the podcast episode itself and you're into that, make sure you run on over to Apple Podcast and subscribe to Deeply Rooted there as well. Again, we want to say a big thank you to all of our friends at Pod Point Ministries, keeping us up to date there and helping us to maintain our status there on Apple Podcasts. So lots of ways to get in touch with us, lots of ways to find out our newest episodes and latest episodes. We'd appreciate it if you'd share those with other people as well, get the news out there to them. I'm sure they would appreciate it, maybe some content they'd like to hear, and share with friends and family as well. And don't forget, if you haven't done so already, trying to update our latest website. That's jeremiahreiner.com. If you head on over to there, you can check out all of our blogs that we've put up, some really good stuff there we'd like to share with some people. And you can also find all the archived messages and episodes that we've done through Deeply Rooted as well. So lots of good ways to get in touch, lots of good ways to stay up to date on what we're doing here through the ministry. Continue to pray for us. Again, as we talked about with Jordan and Cass, these are some very different times, certainly. So we're navigating some very new water in a lot of ministry. And as of recently, a lot of our appointments that we've had to go and speak and preach and teach at various churches have been put on postponement for now, and that's totally okay. We're praying for those. We're trying to stay safe and do the best we can, praying for people out there that certainly need it. We'll be picking back up with those as soon as we can, and I'm sure everybody's really raring to go to get back into fellowship again. I know if you're like me, you miss it a lot. It's just a vital part of life. You never thought we'd come to this, not being able to gather together. So hopefully you're a lot more grateful for your local church, and you understand that God has given us the opportunity to gather together. And when that time comes back again, good Lord willing, we'll certainly be thankful for it and make the most of it and make sure that we're bringing glory to God any way that we can. But until then, here at Deeply Rooted, we're trying our best to put one foot in front of the other and take it a day at a time and make sure that we try to get out some good content, some healthy content, some God-honoring content to you, and we hope you appreciate it. If you do, let us know about that. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. If you got a prayer request, we'd love to gather together and pray with you about that and that situation, whatever it may be. So until next time, we love you guys. Hope you have a fantastic week in Jesus.